One of these films had actors stepping through live minefields recreated from actual military reports. Another dropped Spitfires into dogfights with cameras strapped to the wings. These 10 British war movies didn't fake the war. They got historical accuracy just right. If you're still watching Hollywood war flicks, you've been getting the soft version. Set in World War II, 633 Squadron follows a Royal Air Force unit flying Mosquito bombers on a mission to take down a German rocket fuel factory in Norway. The target isn't the factory itself, but the cliff above it. They're aiming to collapse the rock face and bury the factory underneath. The film's based on a fictional squadron, but it pulls heavily from real-life operations, including Operation Jericho. That bombing run through the fjords, it was shot practically, choreographed down to the wire. The Royal Air Force loaned actual Mosquito aircraft to the production, flown by ex-service pilots, which is why the flight scenes look real, because they are. None of that modern CGI filler here. The aircraft handling, the tactics, the maneuvering, all of it is more accurate than what you get in most war films made today. It was also one of the first films to showcase the Mosquito fighter bombers in real flight. George Lucas even used it as a visual reference point for the Death Star trench run in Star Wars. This one doesn't look or feel like most war films, and that's the point. Just a small unit of British soldiers caught in a Soviet-era minefield in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. The entire film is based on the real 2006 incident involving British paratroopers who triggered landmines while trying to evacuate a wounded soldier. Everything shown on screen reflects actual injuries, procedures, and events. Prosthetics were used to recreate the aftermath, not CGI. One scene shows a soldier using a rifle sling to tie off an artery. That really happened. The production leaned hard into authenticity. The dialogue came directly from real radio transcripts and field reports. Several cast members were Afghanistan veterans, brought in to advise on soldier behavior, positioning, and field reactions under pressure. Almost all of it was shot on location. It plays closer to a documentary than a standard war movie, and that's exactly why it works. Zulu is like a British version of Alamo. The movie covers the 1879 Battle of Rorke's Drift, where a small British garrison held out against a massive Zulu force. Visually and tactically, the film sticks close to military records and eyewitness accounts. Zulu isn't just about spectacle. It's about what happens when you're outnumbered, outgunned, and still expected to hold the line. And it does all that without sacrificing historical accuracy. The battle formations were choreographed using original British dispatches and survivor testimonies. Over 500 Zulu extras were brought in locally and trained to use traditional shield and spear formations based on oral tribal histories. Michael Caine plays Lieutenant Bromhead, a real officer who received the Victoria Cross for his actions. The film tones him down quite a bit. In real life, Bromhead was partially deaf and extremely anxious under pressure, details that didn't make it into the final cut but are worth knowing. During the Cold War, it wasn't just about bombs and space races. The Soviets and the US were also trying to outdo each other in art, culture, and yes, even war movies. Waterloo was the Soviets' answer to Hollywood epics, and what they pulled off here still hasn't been topped in terms of scale. Funded by the Soviet Union, this film used over 15,000 real soldiers from the Soviet Army to recreate Napoleon's final battle. That's not CGI. That's actual trained troops in tailored 19th century uniforms moving in real Napoleonic formations. Artillery, cavalry, infantry, they were drilled for weeks. The production leveled a section of Ukraine's countryside to match the exact layout of the Waterloo battlefield. They even planted 5,000 trees to match original military maps. Real horses were used in every cavalry charge, and unfortunately, that did result in injuries because this was all done for real. No visual effects, no stunt doubles for the animals. Waterloo is still the biggest, most logistically accurate Napoleonic war film ever made. While the events in the bridge on the River Kwai are fictional, the film nails the broader reality of forced labor in World War II. The Burma Railway was a real project, built under horrific conditions using Allied prisoners of war. Over 12,000 prisoners of war died constructing it. most from disease, starvation, and exhaustion. Director David Lean had worked on plantations in Southeast Asia, and you can tell. The heat, the sweat, the fatigue. It's all there. The bridge itself was built full-scale in Sri Lanka using manual labor and real timber. No miniatures, no shortcuts. And when they blow it up in the finale, those are real charges rigged and detonated on set. This one changed the game for aerial combat in film. Battle of Britain goes way beyond the usual war movie formula and actually delivers real dogfighting footage, filmed with real planes, real pilots, and real risk. The production assembled the largest group of World War II aircraft ever used in a movie. We're talking over 100 planes, 12 Spitfires, 3 Hurricanes, and 32 Spanish-built Messerschmitts flying in tight formations. They mounted cameras directly onto the wings and cockpits, and every bit of it was filmed live. Some of the stunts were so dangerous that insurance companies straight up refused to cover them. Doesn't matter, the producers shot them anyway. Bombing runs over London were staged with full-scale pyrotechnics. Explosions were real. Damage was real. Some critics at the time didn't appreciate how much detail the film leaned into, but anyone who actually knows their history, they saw it for what it was, probably the most comprehensive and realistic film about Britain's biggest fight of the 20th century. There aren't a lot of films that take on the Napoleonic naval era, and there are even fewer that bother to get it right. Master and Commander is one of them. Everything in this film, down to the smallest detail, was built from real British naval records. The uniforms, the ship layout, the dialogue, it's all drawn directly from Royal Navy logs, historian research, and actual marine archaeology. They spent $150 million to get it all right. Director Peter Weir didn't just slap together a period piece, he built a full-size replica of the HMS Surprise, shot scenes in open water, and mounted the entire thing on a gimbal soundstage to replicate storm conditions. Russell Crowe trained with naval historians and professional violinists just to make sure Captain Jack Aubrey wasn't a caricature. You won't find any modern swagger in this performance, just straight period authority. Nolan stripped this one down to the essentials. Shot on the actual beaches of Dunkirk, using real World War II destroyers, support vessels, and restored Spitfires, the film recreates the evacuation from the ground up. Extras wore replica uniforms made from authentic textiles. The sound design recreated bullet acoustics and Doppler shifts using real weapon recordings. Everything was shot practically, no green screen, no CGI distractions. Even the timeline, land, sea, air, was structured to mimic the real evacuation window. 1 week on land, 1 day at sea, 1 hour in the air. 1917 focuses on World War I, which doesn't usually get this kind of attention in film. But every single element of this production is grounded in actual history. Sam Mendes based it on his grandfather's war stories. Trench layouts were recreated using original 1916 battlefield maps. Uniforms and equipment were matched to period photos and museum archives. The barbed wire, the corpses, the mud, the horses, it's all modeled off forensic World War I footage and first-hand soldier accounts. Even the dialogue was cross-checked with wartime diaries and letters. Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon is a period piece through and through, but it's also one of the most historically accurate war films ever made. The story tracks Redmond Barry, who starts off as a broke Irish lad, ends up in the British Army during the 7 Years' War, deserts, and then gets forced into the Prussian military. The battle scenes were built from British Army drills straight out of the 18th century. Sword fights and duels were rehearsed using real military manuals from the period. Kubrick shot all the interiors using only natural light and candlelight. That meant 0 electric cues, no cheat lighting, no studio tricks. To pull that off, he had NASA lenses custom modified, literally space-grade glass, just to make sure it looked right. Costumes weren't just inspired by the 18th century. They were either made from actual period fabric or stitched using the exact techniques from the time. Set locations were picked based on their resemblance to paintings by Gainsborough and Watteau. So if something looks like it came out of a museum, it basically did.